Hey guys, today I'm going to take you through another thrift flip alteration, which is quite a tongue twister, but I figured it was high time I got around to this wacky vintage romper that I picked up at a thrift store last summer, mainly because it's been sitting in my to be altered pile for quite a while, and it's getting really freaking hot around here. It's just miserable outside, and this will be a really good piece to wear. So I think the changes I want to make to it should be pretty easy. They're a little bit out of my comfort zone, but nothing too crazy, nothing too far out of what I've already done in the past. So as you can see, it's got this lace up in the front that honestly just sits a little bit weird. I'm thinking I'm gonna replace that with a zipper. I also want to take in the darts a little bit more to make it a little more fitted, and I want to change the hem on the shorts a little because right now they're kind of just a little weird looking. I don't really know how else to describe that. And to be honest, this is a little bit out of my comfort zone of what I usually wear. I typically don't wear really bold patterns or really bright colors, but I just thought this was so fun and like unique and just needs a few changes to make it suit me a little bit better. We'll just get started and see what we can do. First things first, that lace up front had to go. I used my seam ripper to remove the little loops that held the string in place, then used the seam ripper to partially remove the two front panels that were underneath. The panels overlapped at the bottom where the laces ended, so I completely removed the lower right panel, then only removed the top half of the upper left panel. I marked where to cut it by measuring with the zipper I'd be installing and left a few extra centimeters so that the fabric could be folded over to create a clean edge. The bottom half of the panel was then sewn into place to close up the gap that was left in the middle. I had to angle the fabric inward toward the top as the panel was slightly wider than my zipper. Once the bottom of the front opening was secured, I pinned the zipper in place to be sewn. This is what the new front opening of the romper looked like with the zipper. Next, I addressed the weird drapiness of the shorts. With the garment inside out, I pinned a section on each side that was wider at the bottom and narrowed toward the waist. I then tried on the romper with the pins in it to make sure that this is where I wanted the new side seams to be. With the romper still inside out, I lined up the side seams to make sure that they would be even, pinned them in place, and then chopped the heck out of it. I pinned the fabric in place to keep the new side seams together. And this is what the new silhouette was looking like. I actually ended up taking in the sides about an inch all the way up to the arms as well. But before sewing the seams back together, I randomly decided to add pockets without any prior experience doing so. With nothing but a Google search and a prayer to go on, I made 4 vaguely hand-shaped cuts of scrap fabric for my pockets. I measured and marked where I wanted the top of each pocket to sit so that each side would be even. I took the pins out of the side seams so that I could put the fabric right sides together and pinned each half of the pocket to one side of the romper with the edges flush. It feels kind of backwards at first, but once each of the pocket halves are attached, it should look like this. Once the edges were attached, I sewed around the rest of the pocket and pinned the side seams back in place to be sewn. Okay, the lighting is terrible, but this will have to do. So I had to completely redo the pockets because where I first added them was actually too low on my hip, and it just was hanging out the bottom of the shorts. So I did have to redo that. I didn't film it just because it was the same exact process as when I added them the first time. I just had to rip out all the seams and redo it. So that was really annoying. And then I realized I do also have to take out the zipper that I first added, which I'm really bummed about because I really like this one. I think it looks really cool with the design to have this metal embellishment that just kind of stands out with it, but it's not long enough. So right now that makes it a little hard to get on and off because the zipper only comes down to right below my bust, and it's a little hard to get over my hips, whereas the initial opening went down lower. So I need to take this out and swap in just a plain black zipper that I have, and that will go down lower and make it a little easier to get on and off. So that's disappointing, but if that means that I can then still add the darts under the bust like I wanted to and make it just fit better overall, I think that trade-off is worth it. And then it'll also be pretty straightforward in the future if I want to swap it out for a different zipper to just do that swap going forward. So unfortunately, I have to redo the zipper now too. So like I said, to keep the darts under the bust where I wanted, I did have to remove my original zipper as well as the part of the panel that was left at the bottom of the front opening. Because the zipper was slightly narrower than the front opening, I added a small dart to make the opening narrower, which made it just the right size for the new zipper. After the zipper was swapped, I added the underbust darts, first marking them and pinning the fabric to lay flat. They basically just looked like little scooped curves along the seam. I decided these are the only darts I want to add for the moment just because I don't want it to be too fitted, I just want it to look overall less like a potato sack. Next, I cleaned up the inside of my side seams by creating what I think is called a French seam, since I don't have a serger, but I'm pretty sure I did this in the most backwards, chaotic way possible. But in the year of our Lord 2020, chaos is starting to feel pretty normal, so I'm just embracing it. Anyway, I folded each of the edges inward and pinned them together, creating a seam sandwich that hid the rough edges inside, and used a zigzag stitch on my sewing machine to hold it together. In retrospect, a straight stitch probably would have looked cleaner, but it's on the inside, so it doesn't matter that much. I did another stitch around the pockets just to reinforce them and cut a few notches in the fabric to prevent bunching, and the last thing I did was add a stitch at the top and bottom of each pocket to hold the fabric facing the right direction. Well, that took a lot longer than I anticipated. So I was really optimistic to think I could get this done in a day. I guess for someone who is 1, more focused and 2, more experienced with sewing, that would be doable. It doesn't help that I had to redo several of the steps, but here we are, it's done, freaking finally. So let's just do a little review of what went well and what did not. So overall, I am happy with the design choices that I made. I think taking out the lace-up front part was a good choice because the zipper is way easier to get in and out of, and I do like that it adds just a vertical line to the design and gives it a little bit more length. Additionally, I'm really glad that I decided to take in each of the sides rather than trying to get rid of the drapiness of the shorts by chopping the bottom hem, because that's originally what I thought I was going to do. I thought I would take up the shorts, but that would actually have made them really short, and I don't like stuff too short on me. So taking in the side seam made it a little bit more fitted and got rid of that weird drapiness that I didn't like, so that was a good choice. And I'm also really glad that I kind of last minute decided to add pockets. That was not in my original plan, but pockets are a way of life here, so this was a good choice to add pockets. The things that did not go so great were obviously having to repeat several of the steps, namely when I put the pockets too low. Yeah, I should know by now that you always measure twice, cut once. Additionally, I am kind of bummed that I had to get rid of the metal zipper because I really liked how that looked in the design, but this one works just fine, and maybe in the future I'll find a zipper that is the correct length but also has metal, and that'll look really cool. That wouldn't be too hard to just swap that. And the main thing that frustrates me right now though is so I added vertical darts under the bust, which I do like. I think that turned out pretty well just to give it a little bit more shape, but now there's this bunchiness on the sides above the pockets, and I'm not really sure how to fix that. So I did try letting out one of the underbust darts to see if that like released the tension, but it still was kind of weird and bunchy on the side. So I'm keeping the underboob darts. I'm wondering if I should add a couple horizontal ones, if that would help. Part of the problem I think is because I have this side seam open where the pocket is, that actually is causing I think some of the bunchiness, but obviously I'm not willing to give up the pocket. So I'm not really sure. I'm thinking horizontal darts. It doesn't really bother me enough to worry about it right now, but if you are someone who knows more about sewing and can tell me what to do, please tell me in the comments down below. I would love to know like what can help that. To be honest, I do plan on wearing this with a belt anyway, just because I like waist definition, so I don't think the bunchiness will be too obvious with that, but I would like to fix it if possible. And with the scrap fabric that I saved from where the lace-up part used to be, I made a matching scrunchie, because why not? But yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for joining me for this way overcomplicated sewing journey, I guess. It's not really a journey. It was one project. Thank you for joining me for this way overcomplicated sewing project. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. Don't forget to get outside sometime this week, and I'll see you next time.